Welcome to the Marketing Trench. Today, we are excited to have Loida Velasquez of Team BC Real Estate. And we're talking about a subject that I think I was actually talking with the guys earlier today. It's one that's very important, I think. And the reason why is because we're living through a market of uncertainty, right? The inventory is low. Interest rates are kind of all over the place right now. Prices are through the roof. Here in Southern California, my escrow company, we're regularly seeing properties come through tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars above asking. Now, we happen to deal with a lot of luxury properties in the millions, so hundreds of thousands is kind of less crazy than it sounds, I guess, in one way, and it's totally bonkers in another way. But, with the market being as frothy as it is, one temptation or one struggle that we've noticed out there is that sellers who are putting their property on the market are expecting ultra premium dollar amounts for their properties. They know that they've got a precious commodity. They know it's rare. And so what do you do if you're a real estate agent stepping into a listing presentation with a potential seller who's got maybe a bit of an unrealistic valuation in their mind because they think, oh, the market's hot, everything's selling, I'm going to make bank right now. And that's where Loida comes in. She's been selling real estate for many years now. She's very experienced, and her team specializes in structuring listing presentations that manage expectations and therefore lead to closes. And last time I checked in with a video I watched of you, Loida, you had 100% success rate. Don't know if it's still there, but that's just insanely high with getting listings and selling them. So welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to be here and talking about this subject that I know that a lot of agents are probably thinking, man, I need a listing right now. Should I take everything or what should I do?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how did you get started, first of all, just by way of bio, and then why don't you go ahead and lead us into some of your techniques that you present in a listing presentation to make sure that you're sort of managing those expectations.
Yeah, so I've been in the business for about 6 years. Prior to getting into real estate, I worked in marketing and advertising for about 8 years. I absolutely loved what I did. I was traveling all over the country. I was representing more specifically an automotive brand. So I was at auto shows. I was a product specialist. So I was living the dream. Everything was getting paid for, living out of a hotel, suitcase, everything. But then it got to a point that I was like, you know what? I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I don't want to be in parking lots. I remember being in Chicago and it was negative 30 degrees. And that's when I was like, this is not something that I want to do forever.
Travel life.
Yeah, exactly. Real estate was always something that I have thought about. But I remember hearing about cold calling and door knocking. I'm like, I am never going to do that. That's embarrassing. Like, oh my gosh. And here I am years later. That's what I am really good at. So I transitioned into real estate because I saw it more as an opportunity for me to put in the work. I knew that it was not going to be easy or glamorous, but if I stuck to it and I became very good at it, I would have the success that I would need to live the life that I wanted to live, provide for my family and all of that. So that's kind of how I transitioned to real estate. I started with cold calling for sale by owners and expireds because I was told, you know what, Loida, you need to focus on listings. And these type of leads are the low-hanging fruit because they have some type of need to sell. So I got thick skin. I learned all of my objection handlers, and I was like, okay, let's grab the bull by the horns and let's just do this. And then that's kind of how I started my real estate career. Now, when it comes to setting up those expectations with working with sellers, especially right now, what we are seeing is those sellers that say, well, you know what, there's that one buyer out there that's going to pay top dollars. I'm going to wait for them to come.
Yeah.
So when I hear that, I laugh. And at the same time, you were mentioning how we sell 100% of our listings, but at the same time, we do not take every single listing that we go on an appointment on because we're very picky with who we want to work with. At the end of the day, there's no point in me putting a sign in the yard when I know the home's not going to sell, or that we're going to have appraisal issues, or that, things are going to come up, because I've learned from being in this business so many years, and you guys probably too, there's headaches and fires that are going to come up all the time. And the more that I can avoid that, exactly. It's not worth it. I mean, I have already gray hairs. I don't want any more. So whatever I can do to prevent that, I'm going to do whatever I can. And if that means, telling Mr. Seller that I can't help you, I can't get you your price, someone else is probably going to promise you that, but at this point, you're not a good fit for me. I'm fine with turning away business. And I think that might be something that's difficult for a lot of agents to do, especially newer agents that don't have any business going on, because many of them come from a sense of, this next paycheck can mean whether or not I can pay my rent or my mortgage or feed my family.
Yeah. So let's talk about then those, some of those strategies you have in place when, you get into a listing presentation. First of all, do you ask up front before you even go to the presentation what the client has in mind, or do you walk in unsure of that?
No, I pre-qualify every seller before even going on an appointment.
Okay.
So
what does that process look like?
To not waste your time, to not waste their time, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So I find out what price they have in mind that they want to get for the home, how they arrived at that price, the condition, the motivation, what happens if the home doesn't sell, what happens if you don't get the price that you want. Because at the end of the day, if they're not really motivated and they're telling me some number that's outrageous that I know that I can't get, when I do my homework, I'm going to call them back and I'm going to say, hey, you know what, Mr. Seller, you told me you wanted 800,000. How did you arrive at that number? I want them to try to justify that price to me, because when they can't and I hit them with reality, then it's either we decide that, let's not waste each other's time, or are you actually serious about selling? Because if you are, then let's get together. But if you want that 800 to happen, it's not going to happen, not right now. So you're better off.
No justification for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do they ever come back and say, well, I was just thinking, and you're like, okay, 550 it is.
Sometimes when I hit them with that, because there's other agents that might tell them, okay, yeah, I can get you the 800 or whatever it is. When I hit them with the reality and they see, oh wow, well, I was really way off. Okay, well, are you actually serious about selling, or what's important to you about selling and making this move happen? And then at that point, it just becomes communication and your skills and being able to convert that person to see if they're actually a serious seller or not.
Now, I'm curious. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Oh, yeah, no. One of the things that I've always noticed with, especially with realtors that are out there that are really, that kind of rise above, they're really good at their numbers. Like they know their market. What kind of backup, what kind of documentation are you bringing your charts and your reports? Like, are you showing your work when you come back to the buyer and say, wow, here's all of the research that I did, you nailed it, or I think you're a little bit high or low or something like that? What does that process look like when you say you're doing your homework?
My homework. Yeah. So I look up comparables. So I'll pull up any properties that are comparable to their home that have sold in the past 6 months. Because of how crazy the market is, I'll share with them like the last 3 months. And I tell them, you know what, when we open escrow, should we go for this 800,000? If we end up accepting an offer where the buyer has financing, there's going to be an appraiser involved. And they're going to take a look at this data. The numbers don't lie. I mean, I wish I can get you 800 or 900,000, but I mean, this is the reality. So how did you determine that 800,000? Because I want to understand. So I want to give them the ability for them to try to explain to me how they arrived to that number, because maybe I missed something, or maybe they were completely somewhere else. Maybe they were comparing their home to a 3,000 square foot home when their home is 1,200. And that's why they thought, if that went down the street, sold for 800 or 750, mine can sell for 800 or whatever it is. So I hit them with those facts, with things that any appraiser, any public information that they can look up themselves, so that they see that it's not Loida, the one that wants to quote unquote lowball your house. Right. This is just the reality of what the market's going for right now.
I'm sure you inevitably get the consumer who says, well, my friend sold his house in 48 hours for a ridiculous number, so I'm sure
down
I can
in the
get
keys.
And if that is the case, I will tell them, okay, well, you know what? I mean, I would love to be able to get you that, but the reality is that if we want to get you X amount of money, we have to make sure that the home is priced correctly. Because any buyer, especially if they're working with an agent, they're doing their homework. So if they
Yeah.
come to me and they want to write up an offer for 800,000, and they're gonna be like, Loida, please justify to me that price so that I can tell my buyer that it's worth 800,000, because you and I both know it's not worth 800.
Yeah. So, I would imagine that a fair number of the people you're talking to in a listing presentation situation, a fair number of these sellers are looking on your traditional platforms, your Redfins, your Zillows, your Realtor.coms, to figure out what their home valuation is worth. Have you found those in this market to be accurate? And if not, how are you, how are you competing against those things, which are arguably driven by data as well?
So I make it clear to any homeowner that those numbers that are estimates, whatever website you go to, at the end of the day, those are estimates based on a mathematical algorithm. It doesn't take into account the condition, the location, or a lot of different factors. So it may be accurate one day, the next day it might change. I mean, it can change whenever it wants. However, the data that I provide and how I, as a professional, come up with a value for their home is based on information that is solid, that's not going to change from 1 minute to the next. And that's why we want to focus on the numbers that I provide if we want something that's accurate and serious, so that people actually take us seriously when we put the property on the market.
And when you're explaining this, because as a professional who's in a listing presentation situation, there are any number of metrics you could be looking at, right? Square footage is obviously one. And that's a math problem, right? It's price per square foot, averages, that sort of thing. But when you're talking about, say, the value of an upgrade, right? That tends to be a bit more abstract. So how do you convince a would-be seller, especially one who's a bit maybe called argumentative about their own valuation? How do you convince them that
I dumped 100,000 into this kitchen?
Yes, exactly. How do you convince them that that your subjective professional valuation of their kitchen is different than theirs?
It's worth 10x more.
And we get those all the time. One of the things that I do like to look at first is to see what else is active that's very comparable in terms of the condition based on what they're describing to me. And I tell them, you know what, anyone that's looking at your home is going to take a look at that house too. And a buyer, they don't care if you spend 100,000 or 10,000 or $1. If it looks the same, it's the same for them. So I bring up anything that's available that's very comparable to them. And then because of the market that we're in right now, where there's very low inventory and there's really nothing available, I tell them, you know what, right now it's virtually for you, it's impossible for you to give away or underprice your home. So let's price it in a way that will attract every single buyer out there. So instead of them looking at your competition that looks identical to yours, they're going to want to see your home first, submit offers. And once I get multiple offers, then at that point, we can negotiate to see who's going to pay the most. And then at that point, maybe they're going to go with your home versus the other one. But we put the leverage on your side versus now sending people to another property that maybe they're like, oh, well, if this other one's asking for more, I'll just go for the one that's like $10,000 less or whatever it is.
If you could wave a wand right now, let's hypothetical magical wand. If you could wave a wand right now in this market and help sellers, prospective sellers, to understand anything, what would that thing be?
That's a tough one. I mean,
she's like, I got.
You only get one wish. Make it a good one.
I know.
But when I wave my wand, Ricardo goes away, but it just never works.
Oh, it doesn't work. One thing for sellers, I think at the end of the day, it would be just probably the price. If they are serious, let's still be in planet Earth and not like some other planet when it comes to the pricing. A lot of sellers tell me, well, I'm just looking for that one buyer. I just need that one buyer. I don't care about anybody else. Okay, well, now it's like
unicorns.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a magician. So my job is to sell a house and put a sold sign, not to have it sit there and then expire, because then now I'm an agent that doesn't sell properties. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it does come down to the pricing. If someone's not serious, I turn them away, or I tell them, you know what, I'm not the agent for you. And I think that's one of the reasons why my team and I have been able to sell every home that we put on the market, because we're not afraid to turn people away or tell them what the market is like, or be very like straight shooters, because we have a reputation as real estate agents, so that people know that if they're going to work with us, like, you can start packing, you're moving. I mean, you don't have to doubt that you're going to sit there or what's going to happen.
Have you ever turned somebody away and they come back and they're like, okay, Loida, you're right.
Oh
I
yeah,
messed up. Help me out.
I have gotten those, and it's happened from for sale by owners. I had a for sale by owner. He was for sale by owner, and this was like a couple of years ago. So I called him. It was like December. I ended up meeting with him. First of all, he was like, "I'm not going to pay more than 4%." I did every objection handler in person because I know my worth, and he was like, "No, I'm not going to pay more than that." And I did everything. I ended up walking away, and I was like, "Okay, well, if you change your mind, you have my information." He was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to interview other agents, or I have another family friend that's going to do it for less." So I was like, "Perfect. You know what? I have other agents that I know will do it for less. So let me shoot you a text with their info so you can call them, and they'd be happily able to sell your property for 4%.
Whoa, really?
And I remember I reached out to one of the agents that I knew would take it, and I was like, "Hey, I have a referral for you. Might as well capitalize on that." So anyway, I told the seller, he's like, "Oh, I already have someone else." Long story short, a month and a half goes by, and then I get a random text. "Hey, Loida, so it's me regarding blah, blah, blah property. I wanted to see if you would still be available to sell my house." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So full commission. He ended up coming back to me, but he knew that I was the best one, and I had no problem walking away at that point. And
Wow.
I ended up selling that property. And then that led to more, but that's just one example.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It was Scott. Scott recognized the error of his ways.
I did.
Yeah, I would imagine, especially in this market, that for sale by owner, I haven't seen the data on this, but I'm kind of surprised that for sale by owner properties haven't kind of taken off a little bit, right? Because the whole for sale by owner mentality, aided and abetted by the kind of platforms that we have online, that the technology platforms now, there's kind of this emerging narrative that real estate agents don't do anything, that homes sell themselves.
I don't need you, or why do I need you? I can do this myself if they're selling for so much so quick.
Yeah, and if there was ever a time when that was true, this would probably be the time. And yet, right, people are turning to real estate agents. I think we in Orange County, for sale by owners are 1%, less than 1%. I don't know. It's very, very low. I haven't checked in several months, but I mean, it was fewer than 10 out of thousands of listings, a couple thousand listings. So it's interesting to me that even now people are looking for those agents. How many properties are you seeing right now go on the market and not actually selling? Does it feel like this is still a problem, or do you feel like sellers are beginning to identify agents who can deliver on their promise?
I think for the most part, I am still seeing properties sell. The ones that I see come off the market, either expired, withdrawn, or canceled, are the ones usually that are tenant occupied or multi-units. Those are the ones that I have seen struggling, especially in LA County with the eviction moratorium and all of that going on. But if it was a traditional home that was priced correctly, or even if it was slightly more than market value, since there hasn't been any inventory, it has been selling. But that's just kind of what I have seen from experience. Those multi-units, it's been bad. And these sellers want to sell, but the tenants don't want to leave. They're not paying rent, and it just becomes like a little struggle for them.
That's interesting.
I've got a question, and then I've got a little bit of a twist, but I might save the twist for a minute. You came into the business with a marketing background, so you've got a good perspective on consumer intent and communication with consumers. What are you doing anything special, or what are you doing to get in front of sellers, even in the first place? Like you said, inventory is so low, and there's about 3 realtors or 30 realtors to every seller in America right now. So how do you differentiate yourself and get in front of people, saying, "I will not give discounts. You're going to list it for what I say," and what is that pitch that sellers are like, "I'm in"?
Yeah, well, for me, thankfully, when I got into this business, I started to implement social media immediately, whether it was
Okay.
YouTube, Instagram. So I have built that all of those platforms organically throughout the years, where it's mostly real estate agents that follow me. Over 80,000 or almost 80,000 here, YouTube, 20 something in Instagram. So one of the values that I bring to sellers is that, you know what, if we
Okay.
decide to work together, your property is going to be exposed to everyone that follows me. And unless you hire the guys from
Wow.
TV, you're not getting that type of exposure. So that's just one thing. Aside
That's
from
awesome.
that, I still cold call. If I get a listing, I'll call all the neighbors around there with my team. We'll go and door knock. So we're very
Yeah.
active when it comes to the marketing. And we tell them, you know what, like anyone can put a sign, anyone can put it online, but who's actually going to go out there and hustle to get you exposure that you need so that we can get multiple offers? Because both the seller and both I want to make sure that the home sells in the best time possible. We get the most amount of offers that we can so that we can negotiate the best price and terms, and then everyone's happy. We all get a paycheck. They move on, we move on. Now they're telling all their friends and family, you know what, Loida, this girl, like she was hustling. She called, she said she was going to cold call. I don't know who even does that, but she did it. And then that's how I'm able to get video testimonials that when I meet with a potential seller, I tell them, you know what, here are some video testimonials. I can give you the phone numbers to all my past clients. Feel free to reach out to them so that they can tell you what their experience was working with me. That way, if there's any
Wow.
doubt that I don't know what I'm doing, you can hear it from someone else. And when I put it like that, I mean, they can go out and do their research. They can look me up and they can see that I'm a legit realtor that's doing the business.
Okay, you opened the door wide open to my twist. So and it wasn't my intention, but it worked out perfectly. You have just this unbelievable abundance mentality. And I looked at your YouTube channel and you said it very quickly. You have 80,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel, and they're almost all real estate agents. You're teaching real estate agents the things that you do in your business to be successful. And I saw you interviewing other real estate agents that were doing really cool things that you respected, and you're sharing and you're giving back to the community. So you've built this nationwide referral network, which I'm sure works both for building your team and for getting referrals across the network or across the country. Talk a little bit about that, because I mean that abundance mindset is really rare in sales. And we see it, and you can tell somebody who's a victim, and you can tell somebody who's a servant leader and just there to help everybody around them. So tell us a little bit about that journey and how that started and how that evolved.
Yeah, so I remember being a brand new agent, and I was like, I want to know what it's like to be a real estate agent and what it's like to cold call and door knock. And I remember going on YouTube and I couldn't really find any videos. The ones that I could find were mostly always men training. I wasn't finding a lot of content from women giving their experience, or people like around my age that I felt like, I want to see what their life is like as an agent. So I took that as an opportunity to just kind of start putting videos out there of my journey and what I was learning. Now, it was very scary because I was not used to being in front of a camera or putting myself out there. Now I knew that the moment that I put a video out there, I'm subject to people giving me their opinions or criticism. I mean, anything. But at the end of the day, the way that I saw it is that if I put out a piece of content that helped at least one agent be able to convert a lead, and then now they get paid, I mean, that's what really made me happy and excited. So it's funny because when I started my YouTube channel, it was never with the mentality of like, oh, I want to be a YouTuber and I just want to get like 100,000 subscribers and put out a whole bunch of content. It was more like, you know what, I want to put out these videos that can help these agents, because I feel that a lot of agents are misinformed or they don't even know what they're doing. And if at any point I end up working with one of these agents, at least they know how I work, and it's going to make things so much easier. Because I'm pretty sure that you guys have been in a transaction where the other agent's like a nightmare and you're like, Where did you learn or not
No,
learn?
never.
that
No,
doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
I don't know what markets you work in.
Escrow is a neutral third party.
I know they're like in the middle of it.
So Loida,
Justin.
what percentage of your business do you think are you getting from referrals from your network and from you so generously sharing everything that you're doing and what you're learning?
So on average, maybe every month I get like 2 or 3 referrals that naturally just come from like Instagram or YouTube. And it's mostly just
Oh, yeah.
agents. Here and there, I get consumers that come across my videos too. Last
Yeah.
year, I had a consumer. He was out here in Florida. He was like, "Hey, you know, I have an investment property in LA. I've been watching your YouTube videos. I wanted to see if you could help me with selling it because you look like you know what you're doing." And I was like, "Perfect." We got on a call. Ended up selling that property 1.5 million. That just came from someone that found me on YouTube. So that's just an example.
What did he
So-
think it was worth?
Oh, well, he thought it was worth around there. So thank God he was
Okay, good.
realistic on the price.
He watched enough of your videos, so he
Yes,
understood.
he knew. Yeah. So most of my business comes now from a lot of my past clients and also agent to agent referrals from agents that watch me on social media.
Yeah. See, I am a rabid fan of, I'm obsessed with content marketing and putting yourself out there because the introductions and the conversations that you have, that conversation does not even get started until they know, like, and trust you. So they're not grilling you. They've watched 15 hours of your YouTube channel. They know everything about you.
Yeah.
They're bringing stuff up that you talked about 2 years ago, like it was yesterday, and you're supposed to remember. And it's just, you know, I mean, that's such a powerful lesson for anybody listening out there. And, you know, we've got a friend. I don't know if you know Kyle Seagraves. He's a loan officer, young guy. He just topped 100,000 subscribers, but he did something very, very similar to you. Well, not to the industry necessarily, but as he was learning the mortgage business, he would pop on YouTube and do a video about it. So every time he had a conversation and learned a guideline, he would do a YouTube video about it. And today, like I said, he's got over 100,000 subscribers. He's got, I think he did a 40-minute video about FHA guidelines in 2021 that has over 1 million views on it now, because you know how interesting FHA loans are. And it's like, I want this to come out of these stories so that people can realize you don't have to be perfect and know everything and do everything. I'm sure you can't even watch your first 20 videos because you're like, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe but that was my lighting. That was my camera. That was my whatever, my audio, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the cool thing about me and the fact that I've been putting out videos for so long is that anyone that is new now can go back to my very first videos and see how bad I was. My first sell by owner call that I ever did, I recorded it and I put it on YouTube. You guys can watch it. It has like over 140,000 views. But if you compare that physical call to my most recent one, I'm like a different person. And I think people that are coming in that are like finding me on YouTube, they can see how I'm a genuine person. The transformation pretty much I've had as a real estate agent.
Transparency.
And it's like, well, if Loida was really bad and now she's really good, like there's some hope for me. And Scott, I know you mentioned earlier, like how it is that, you know, I have this abundance mindset of giving back and giving all this information. You know, I get always so many messages and comments from agents, newer agents, veteran agents that tell me, you know what, I'm a part of this brokerage and they promised me the world. The agents here don't want to share any tips with me because they think I'm going to go and take their listings or take their business. And some of them are shocked that I offer so much free information. And for me, at the end of the day, it's more of helping these agents. I know that even if 100 are watching my content, maybe only one is actually going to implement everything that I say. So it's not like everyone, I mean, it would be great if everyone does. but if it can help one person, two people,
Yeah.
and better their business, that's really what's important for me. And I don't mind giving out all this information, because the way that I see it is that I'm helping someone. You're going to remember me one day when you're getting your first listing, your first paycheck, because you saw a video of me that probably changed your life and your career. I'm not getting anything out of it, but if you message me, hey, Loida, I did this and it worked, that makes me happy and excited. Because again, like I told you, when I started my YouTube channel, it was not to become a YouTuber. It's more to help people in their business, because I've been in that position where, that paycheck changed my life to be able to have my mom retire so that she doesn't have to work. So it probably will do the same to someone else.
It almost also seems like you and this is just so mature. You don't look that old, but you almost also you used YouTube as sort of an accountability thing for you. You were like, this is going to be uncomfortable. And I learned this yesterday, but I'm going to share it and I'm going to put it out there because it might help somebody who's one day in the business, after me or something like that. And just the pressure of, I mean, I just can't even imagine the pressure of going out there and sharing stuff that you're just learning and just saying, hey, I just learned this. And you said you shared your first listing call?
My first for sale by owner live cold call. It's on there.
God. You
awkward.
You said you have thick skin. My God, that is absolutely crazy. I love the vulnerability. I
cringe at going back and listening to my own voicemails and videos.
I don't listen. I don't watch any of these. I won't go back and even watch our own podcast. I'm like, that one's in the can.
And it's funny that you're mentioning that, because I remember when I first started, I was also told by people that I was watching and being mentored by, go back and watch your videos, because that's how you're going to learn to get better in front of a camera and what you need to work on. So it was very cringe watching myself, but I could see that, I was talking really fast. I was very serious. And that's when I knew, okay, I got to speak a little slower. I got to smile more and things like that, because people were leaving me comments, hey, Loida, you're talking too fast. And then for me, it was like, that's the one thing that you noticed, that I was talking too fast instead of the information that I was giving you. So when I saw those flaws, when people pointed it out, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I know, because I watched it. So yeah, I do talk fast. But then that allowed me to now work on my communication and how I delivered whatever it is that I was saying.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I listen to our podcast on 2.5 times speed, because I feel like we don't talk fast enough. But you do you. So I love that you have that courage, though, to go out and just shoot straight with people, especially in a market like this, because earlier when you were talking about how you just kind of lay it out for people, and you give them the option, like, hey, I'll introduce you to somebody else. I'm like, oh man, that is ballsy, especially in this particular.
I have learned to be like that. I'm very much like that in person. I have no problem with calling
what is it
out.
about you? Like, take me into that mindset, because I feel like there's probably a portion of our audience that wants to be like that, but is afraid of the outcome.
Yeah.
So tell us that journey a little bit. My
mentality is one that it's like, if I don't get that listing, it's not going to affect me. I think to myself,
what if it is going to affect you? Like you had mentioned not being able to pay rent. Like, what if it is going to affect you?
And then it means I just got to make twice as many calls to find that right person that needs to work with me. That's the mindset that I have. So for
Look
me,
at you. That's awesome.
There's always more.
That's awesome.
Yes. I make sure that I don't have a scarcity mindset, that I'm not desperate for a listing. And that's why I think I have like these ballsy things to say, because I'm not afraid.
Loida's apps go up to 11.
No, man. Seriously, that speaks so much confidence. It's not even funny.
Yeah. But did you feel that confidence inside, or it was that something you grew into? Yeah.
Yes.
So you did it anyhow, or you were scared to you were scared to death. Now you're just slightly less scared. You're just like, you know, that you like, right? Like you've done it enough, and you're like, well, that didn't kill me, so I guess I'll do it again, or I'll push it a little bit harder. But that's what I'm saying is you didn't need the confidence first. The confidence kind of came from you just pushing and knowing that you got to get through this, and you have to push through this, and you got to do it anyhow.
Yeah, I think it was making those like thousands of phone calls. My first year, all I did was door knocking. So like building those the communication and figuring out people's personalities and how they talk and all of that, that really helped me to be able to get to a point that whoever it is that I'm talking to, I can immediately change to a driver or an analytical or whatever it is and get to their level. So I learned how to mirror and match and NLP and a lot of that stuff. And that's what helped me become more confident and comfortable being able to have a conversation with whoever it is that I'm talking to. But I was never like this in the beginning. You know, growing up, I was a very shy person. In school, I would be the last one to walk and give a presentation. If the teacher wanted to volunteer, I would always make sure to have my head down and not make eye contact because I hated public speaking. And then, you know, it's funny because one of a character, even though it's like a fictional character, Wonder Woman is someone that I admire. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be like the Wonder Woman of real estate, because Wonder Woman, would she cry if someone slammed the door in her face? No, she'll be like, you know what? You're lost. Moving on next. And that's kind of my mentality of how I see things in this business, because you have to have thick skin. I feel that I have already worked with so many different clients and so many different agents to know that if you don't put your foot down, you're going to get stepped all over and people are going to take advantage of you. And that's why I come from a sense of, you know what, I say certain ballsy things. So sellers know, you know what, I'm the professional. I appreciate your opinion, but this is how it's going to work, or we're not a good fit for each other.
That's awesome.
And then they get scared. Okay.
And then they get scared.
Well, and then you get in your car and you're just like, what did I just do?
And I'm like, no. And then they call me back. Okay, Loida, you're the best.
Oh man, that's so funny.
So how do you teach other people this confidence? Where do they have to start? They have to. So I used to tell people, I used to work at Cloud CMA. And I used to tell people, every time you walk into a listing appointment, you're going up against 4 or 5 other realtors. So you better look the part, you better talk the part, and every single piece of marketing collateral that you leave behind needs to communicate, hey, this guy knows the market better than each and every one of those other agents. But how do you start to kind of instill or get somebody to pick up that level of confidence that you have? Is it learning how to handle objections? Is it learning how to, like, what is it? Where do you start?
For me, I saw it when I started to incorporate role playing. I was role playing in the beginning every single day for an hour. 30 minutes before, I would start my phone calls, and then in the afternoon, I would role play again. And I did that religiously because I knew if I wanted to get better at talking to anyone, I had to know how to speak. And if they threw an objection at me, there's no time for me to stumble on what I'm going to say. It has to be like immediately. So the role playing is what really helped me to get to that point where, you know, I got that confidence, because now I was making these phone calls, talking to people. If they threw an objection at me, I already knew what to say. And at that point, if I know what I say and I sound smooth when I'm saying it, then they're not going to question me anymore, even if I was completely new and I had never sold a home. And that's another thing, how you present yourself, just like how you were saying, Ricardo, it's really going to determine whether or not someone is going to doubt you, or if they're going to be like, damn, like, she knows what she's doing. I want to work with her.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I admire your discipline. Like, that's the word that keeps surfacing in my brain as you're talking, right? It's discipline that you walk into a listing presentation and have your comps predetermined and you're ready to defend them. It's discipline that you did door knocking every single day for your first year. It's discipline that you do the role playing consistently, right? Like regularly, until you got to the point where you were just very confident in yourself. And it's discipline that you're creating regular content on YouTube. You know, people, they think that the hardest part of doing what we're doing here, creating a show, creating content, is all of the technology maybe, or trying to figure out like the branding of the show. It's not.
I need the right lighting.
Right. Like,
Exactly.
the hardest part is doing exactly what you're doing, which is being disciplined enough to consistently produce content. And doing that over and over and over again has gotten you to where you are today. I'm curious, do you mind sharing how many listings did you get and close in your first year in real estate?
My first year was 15.
Okay, well and where were you?
In Los Angeles.
Okay, so you did
Southern California.
15 your first year in a highly competitive, because Los Angeles is highly competitive, very cutthroat, tons of agents, right? High dollar values oftentimes. And so you're dealing with a lot of people who think they can make fast money. Like the number of licensed agents in Southern California would blow your mind. And so there's like 14,000 plus, probably 20,000 plus just in Orange County alone, right? I think it's even more than that now. I haven't checked,
Yeah.
but anyway, it's a ton, right? So the fact that you're able to get 15 is kind of mind-boggling. Do you mind sharing how many you closed last year?
Last year, it was like 25, but over time, my business has also changed from focusing on real estate and adding other multiple streams that I'm focusing on as well.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, because of my growth on social media and things like that.
Okay, interesting. So real estate for you then has been a gateway to other opportunities. Your business is growing. And you also had a move. You shared with us that you had moved. And so you had to relocate business, which is a challenge. Although you guys do business all across the United States.
Yeah.
Your team does.
Correct.
Yeah.
Have you, do you have, do you have your own team? Like, I mean, I can only imagine that with you helping so many agents, you have to get at least a call a day from people that say, hey, I want to work with you. I want to work on your team or under your team. Has that been a byproduct also of your generosity?
Yeah, it happens pretty much every day that I have someone reaching out. I am part of EXP Realty, so there's a lot of agents that either want to join EXP or want to join my team. So that has been another thing that I focus on, growing my organization and the team. I do a lot of sponsorships and partnerships. There's just been a combination of a lot of different things that over the years have started to come up because I decided to take that first step of picking up a phone and start creating content back then.
Well, and with a focus on empowering others, right? Of putting it out there. So your personal business was 25, but I would imagine the people that you've empowered and brought onto your team, I would imagine you guys have a pretty healthy list of listings there, right?
Yeah.
So that's just with all these other things you got going on. That was just in your spare time you were able to get 25, sell 25 homes.
And I remember when I first got into real estate, I remember being told, you know what, you have to make the phone calls and the door knocking like your first 2-3 years so that later on, if you don't want to make these calls or prospect, like you don't have to. So it's gotten to that point where, you know, if I want to just hang out with my family on Monday morning, like I don't have to worry about like, oh, you know, I have to make 50 calls today. Otherwise, what's going to happen? Because I put myself in that position where over time, you know, I built a business in the beginning so that eventually, you know, referrals just start coming in, people start recognizing me. I can focus on other things outside of real estate that also bring me revenue. And then that's kind of how things have been growing for me.
And are you still, so if you go spend Monday with your family, are you making those 50 calls still on Tuesday? Like, are you still cold calling? Are you still doing any of that?
I do still cold call. It's not as much as I used to back when I first started. So when I first started, I like to say that, you know, I had a very military schedule. It was like role play from 7:30 to 8 to 11:30, making phone calls, started with expireds and for sale by owners, then circle prospect. Afternoon was admin
Dustin
work.
continues to be impressed by your level of discipline.
I am.
Dustin is going to go flog himself in the back room after this episode.
He's going to share this with his sales reps.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
So then that's the mentality that I had, that I was told. You know, I watched a lot of Mike Ferry. Mike Ferry talks a lot about focusing on listings and door knocking. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm just gonna mirror what the top producers have done in the past, and it worked for them. So I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel. So that's all I did. That's how I focused my energy on in the beginning. So now, when I do make phone calls, like I still do get excited about calling up for sale by owner, because I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if they're going to yell at me or they're going to cuss me out, or if I'm going to be able to set an appointment at that point. But in a way, I now see it almost like a game, because I want to test my skills. Like, okay, Loida, let's see if you can convert this person and get an appointment on that first phone call, because sometimes it takes multiple calls before you can actually convert them.
You know, one of the things I'm getting out of this, and Ricardo, I know you can, I think you'll agree with me on this, as technology has really evolved, like really over the past decade, you see a lot of people chasing technology as the easy button or the shortcut. But what I keep hearing from you, especially with the mic reference, you've got this crazy solid foundation of old school. This is what works. Cold calling FISBOs, cold calling, expireds, door knocking, and then you've introduced kind of this technology as an amplifier or an enhancer to your business, and you've really just sort of collided old school and new school, and really just come out on top, like in a crazy way. But you still hang on to those fundamentals. You know, they're fundamentals because they work. But what we notice,
it's easy to ignore or want to stray away from the fundamentals because it's not sexy. It's not fun. It's
exactly,
you know, it's a lot of things we don't want to do. Shiny object syndrome is a real thing, but it all goes back to discipline. I know that if these top producers did it that way, I'm going to discipline myself to not want to reinvent the wheel, and I'm going to stick to what works.
Yeah, and I feel that over time, especially now with like technology and Instagram and social media, I always get newer agents, especially that say, oh, you know what, like, which leads should I buy? But they have no idea what to say or what questions to ask. So I'm like, look, learn your scripts, go after like the free type, go after the for sale by owners, like build some thick skin, and then start buying these leads. Because if not, you're just going to waste your money. You're not going to know what to say. You're not going to convert them. And then you're going to think that, oh, these leads suck. But in reality,
that's when you default to these leads aren't any good.
Yeah, these leads aren't any
exactly.
good. That's
and if I could say one more thing, I think that a lot of agents also don't take this business seriously, in the sense that you are a business owner. So you have to be disciplined to treat it like one. They think, oh, you know, I'm going to post some stuff on Instagram and get some leads. Like, I wish it was like that. At this point, here and there, I get people, but I'm not banking on social media being my only stream of where I generate leads from.
Are you managing all of your own social media? Or do you have a team to produce your YouTube videos? Or did you hire somebody to do your Instagram, or do you do it all yourself?
I pretty much do everything myself. Last year, I hired a videographer, and sometimes he'll come out and shoot some videos and edit them. If not, I'll record my stuff and then he edits it. For my Instagram, I pretty much handle it. I recently did hire a social media manager to help me with that. But pretty much the past few years, I've been doing everything on my own, from like the thumbnails to the editing my videos, coming up with the ideas. When I first started YouTube, I didn't know how to edit, but I taught myself. I feel like I'm a nerd, and like I can figure things out pretty quickly. So yeah, that's just how it's been all this time.
I mean, it sounds to me like we could easily veer off into a whole nother conversation about starting from zero and building your real estate, social media, and video empire.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe that was a swing and a miss on our part, bringing you on for the wrong subject, or maybe it's just an opportunity to bring you back on. But either way, I think, you know, the bottom line here is to have that disciplined approach, know what you're doing when you go in, be able to defend your thesis, that, you know, the valuation or whatever, and don't be afraid to say no to people because you got an abundance mindset. And, you know, we can say this over and over and over again, but saying it's one thing, living it and doing it is a completely different thing. And that's really freaking impressive. So, you know, I got to just say, I just commend you. I mean, this is really, really cool stuff. And it's exciting to hear, even in this market with all the challenges that are going on, that there's still a place for professionals who are like you, who do the work and are bringing real value to your clients.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's not easy, but that's why I put out that content to show others that I did it. And, if you are focused and determined and disciplined, like, you can make things happen for yourself too.
Loida, where can people find you on the internet if they want to find more great content from you?
So you can check out my YouTube channel. You can just search Loida Velasquez, or you can go to my Instagram, Loida Velas, or my website, loidavelasquez.com. Part of TBC EXP Realty. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. And if you want to hear more great conversations with people like Loida, you can check out Ricardo Bueno's website, ricardobueno.com, where he has his podcast. It's on a bit of a hiatus because he has child number 2 and he's not sleeping, but he will be back. So sign up, get his newsletter, The Authority newsletter, check out his podcast over there. Really great content. He's also got classes for sale. If you are in the industry, you want to get better at your CRM or other tech, that's where you can find out all about that. You can find Scott over at findmywayhome.com, especially if you are looking to connect with an experienced lender. You've tried the big box Rocket Mortgage style thing, didn't seem to work out for you. You realize that you just weren't a fit for their platform, because honestly, most people aren't. And you're looking for somebody you can know and trust, who's smart and has the kind of experience behind them, like Loida does in the real estate side, but you're looking for the lender version, findmywayhome.com. And Scott's network of brokers over there is where you should search. And then if you're in California and you're looking to sell your home or even buy a home and you want to use our services, Lighthouse Escrow, we're happy to help you out. We have a free closing cost calculator, a couple scrolls down on our homepage. You can see how much your closing costs might be in an estimated fashion just by scrolling down and inputting some basic information. Don't have to download an app, don't have to sign up for anything. We won't spam your inbox, just right there for your utilization. So that's all of us. Loida, it has been a thrill. Until next time, this has been the Marketing Trench.